Are you a job hopper or a job upgrader? Well, stick around because in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly what the difference is between those two things. Hey everybody, it's Brian from Life After Layoff, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about job hopping and how that can be perceived from both a career coaching perspective and from a corporate recruiter. Now, as a corporate recruiter myself, with 20 years of experience interviewing and hiring thousands of people into some of the world's largest companies, I've seen a lot of resumes and I've talked to a lot of people. And one of the things that really stands out is somebody that has a job hopping resume. But before we get too far into it, if you're interested in more videos just like this one, directly from a corporate recruiter, make sure you hit the subscribe button. You might want to hit that notification bell as well so you don't miss a post. Just a little bit of background about this video and why I decided to make it. There has been some advice going around both in the comment section and on some of my private one-on-one coaching sessions where people will be asking me of my thoughts about the job hopping and using it as a strategy to make more money quickly. So I think the advice that was going around was the best way to get ahead in your career financially is to stay at a job for 18 months to 2 years, and then every 2 years essentially you're quitting your job, moving on to a different position that's going to pay you more, and that's how you basically work your way through the salary range. And there is, I guess, some degree of truth to that, where when you leave an organization, especially one that's underpaying you, and you move to another company, generally speaking, you can make pretty significant jumps in income. But there is a difference between hopping for that income and, in other words, a career upgrade versus job hopping just for the sake of job hopping. Because I suspect a lot of people who are job hopping are doing so because they don't have a lot of direction in their career. And I know that might sound a little bit harsh, but essentially people who don't have a solid strategy or a reason for the job move or the job movement tend to have a pretty disjointed resume, and it may not hurt you as badly in the earlier part of your career, but once you hit mid-career, it's definitely going to come back and start biting you. And I would say from a hiring manager's perspective, this is sending a lot of resumes or looking at a lot of resumes and talking very intimately with hiring managers about people who maybe have a lot of the right stuff for what we're looking for, but if you have a job hopping resume, that's definitely something that is brought up by a hiring manager, and they look at you very skeptically. And what happens is the interview then becomes more defensive. From the lens of the hiring manager, they now start to look at you more skeptically and now are probing why exactly have you had so many jobs, or can't you stay at a position for more than a year, 18 months, 2 years. So if your strategy is to take a new job every 2 years to try to get to the higher salary band, I do think that you need to make sure that you know what you're doing. Now, I will say this, and I've told my private clients that I think that the advice of job hopping every 2 years in order to take jumps in your salary band is excellent advice for somebody who only cares about the first 10 years of their career. If you don't care about the rest of your career, then by all means, hop jobs every 2 years, get that additional 5, 8, 10% bump. And then once you hit that ceiling, and if you're not familiar with the ceiling concept in your career arc, there's a video that I made about the employment curve, and you should check that out. I just made that. I'll probably leave a link for that. But essentially what that career curve is if you decide to go down the individual contributor route versus the strategic or leadership route, there's only so much that an employer is going to pay you for a particular job or particular skill set, and you kind of hit a ceiling in compensation. If you're somebody that's on the lower end of the compensation range and you start moving your way through those salary bands by taking a different job every 2 years, you can probably get up to that ceiling faster than the person that just stays at one company. But what happens is once you hit that ceiling, and that's usually probably maybe the 8 to 10 year mark is what I would guess, and that's kind of where the major crossroads kind of splits, where you either go on a leadership career path and you open up a whole bunch of different opportunities and salary bands that are beyond the individual contributor career path, Or you take the individual contributor career path, and then that's where you're kind of capped. So you could probably get up to that point pretty quickly if you do the job hopping. But if you're somebody that doesn't care about your career beyond that, then that's probably a fine strategy. However, if you're somebody that cares about growth beyond that 10-year mark, and it's probably not hard and fast 10, but I would say it's probably 10 years, roughly. And if you get to that point and you have a job every year to 18 months to 2 years on your resume, and your resume really starts to reflect instability, then it becomes a problem because it's going to harm you, and you're not going to show progression in career, and you're essentially going to pigeonhole yourself as a career journeyman, and you're going to stunt your growth at that point. An employer isn't going to look at you for an advanced role. It's this people who kind of typically jump from job to job to job without a real strategy. There's not a promotional opportunity that they're doing it very calculated. They're just kind of jumping because this guy's going to pay them $5,000 more for the job. You generally are not going to move on the fastest career path up. Most people get the experience that they need on the strategic side by being promoted inside of a company, maybe 1, 2, or 3, even 3 or 4 times. And that's usually what creates a stronger resume that then other companies will poach and move you into leadership positions. So unless you get very lucky, I'm not saying that there's no cases where people job hop and into leadership positions, but the chances of that are much lower than if you are kind of homegrown, get a few promotions, and then move. Once you've kind of gone through the salary band, then you move if you're being blocked. But I think when I start looking at resumes, and especially when I'm in an interview setting, we still don't want to see somebody that only lasts 6 months, 8 months, a year and a half in every single job for a decade, because that just shows that there's not a lot of either you aren't successful in these companies and are being exposed on some level, or you get bored easily and essentially you go to a different company because you get bored, or something happens in those jobs that necessitates you moving to a new role. That's what it starts to look like. And I would say it's pretty accurate. If somebody has a history of doing that over 10 years, there's usually a repeating pattern of behavior that starts to come out of it, like it or not. So my recommendation would be, if you're somebody that is looking to move up in your career, do so from a very calculated perspective. Make sure that the next position that you're moving into truly makes sense for your career, and it's not just chasing a few extra bucks, because short term, you're going to make more money than the guy who's staying at the same company, but long term, that person's going to pass you by. It's kind of like the tortoise and the hare. You're going to start to see that it's going to be more difficult for you to get good, solid opportunities. So just be very careful, because hiring managers really do, and every company that I've worked in, hiring managers really do pick apart that aspect of people's jobs. And I've had hiring managers flat out tell me, don't even bother interviewing that person, because they've had 10 jobs in 10 years and they're clearly not, either they're not working out at those companies, or they don't have dedication, and I need somebody that's dedicated in this role. So I've heard that. I probably heard it this week, honestly. So if you're somebody that is starting to build a job hopping resume and you're worried about it, I think it's time to recalibrate where you are in your career and really start to put some more strategy behind your decisions. So if you're somebody that is dealing with the job hopping and is kind of confused about what's the next step for you, or how to kind of put more direction into your career, I actually do offer some private one-on-one coaching sessions, so you can feel free to check out my website for those. I also have some of my deepest and most intimate knowledge in the form of a couple of training courses. The first one is called Resume Rocketfuel. It's designed to teach you how to write a resume that's going to give you the best chance of getting noticed by that recruiter. We also talk about how to handle job hopping and some other potential red flags on resumes and the best strategy for those. So if you're struggling with your resume and you're not getting that first round interview, definitely check that out. But once you get the first interview, and that's the purpose of the resume, then it's up to you to sell yourself throughout the rest of the process. And that's where the ultimate job seeker boot camp comes in. And so that's going to be loaded with tips, tricks, all how to get through each step of the interviewing process and ultimately land your dream job. So it gives you a lot of really deep kind of behind the scenes. We review what hiring manager feedback looks like, and I actually go through some real hiring manager feedback with you. And we go through at each round of the interview, what the hiring managers are thinking, how they're assessing you, and how to position yourself to be the one that ultimately gets that offer. So check it out if you think that you could use a little bit of a boost in your career search. But appreciate you watching. Hopefully this helps somebody, and don't take that bad advice unless you don't care about the second half of your career. But thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.